On a chaotic afternoon in Los Angeles, traffic buzzed as hurried people crossed the streets. Amid the rushing crowd, a homeless man, weary and with eyes full of despair, reached out with a simple plea: "Can you give me $1?" He expected little more than indifferent glances or perhaps a polite murmur of apologies, but fate had other plans. Unbeknownst to him, he was about to cross paths with one of Hollywood's most humble and admired figures. What happened next would not only change this man's day, but his entire life. Before we continue with the story, tell us where you're watching from. If you like this story, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow we have a special story for you. It was yet another evening in Los Angeles. The city seemed alive and frantic as always. The main square was packed. Families strolled together, tourists snapped photos, and hurried locals crossed the busy streets. Nearby, luxury shop windows gleamed, showcasing clothing that seemed to belong to another world, unattainable for most of the people passing by. Near a modest pizzeria, Tom sat quietly. The contrast between the city's sparkle and his reality was stark. He held a piece of cardboard with large but hesitant letters that read, "Can you give me $1? Any help is welcome." Beside him, a cup containing a few coins seemed to challenge the dazzling lights of the square. Tom, with a tired appearance and a distant gaze, adjusted the sign from time to time, trying to keep it visible to passers-by. His shoulders slumped as though the weight of life had become unbearable. His eyes scanned the people, searching for any sign of empathy, but nearly everyone ignored him, either looking away or rushing past. His mind was filled with conflicting thoughts: shame for being in this situation, despair over not knowing how to escape it, and a spark of hope that, though dim, refused to be completely extinguished. As the smell of fresh pizza wafted through the air, his stomach growled, a painful reminder that he hadn't eaten all day. Small gestures of frustration escaped him. He glanced at the cup, shaking it slightly to hear the sound of the coins, as if that might attract more generosity. He adjusted his already crooked glasses and ran a hand through his messy hair. Each movement seemed weighed down with resignation. Among the crowd crossing the square, a mysterious man observed Tom from a distance. He moved calmly, stopping just a few feet away from the man holding the sign. His eyes studied Tom, assessing the situation before deciding what to do. After a moment of hesitation, he stepped forward, approaching slowly. Tom adjusted the sign for the 5th time that hour. He wasn't even sure if he was doing it to get noticed, or just to distract himself from thinking about how everything had gone wrong. People hurried past, some avoiding eye contact, others pretending he wasn't there at all. "Hi, how's it going?" Tom heard the voice before he realized who had spoken. Slowly, he looked up to find a man standing in front of him. The man had a calm expression, unhurried, as if time didn't matter to him. He didn't look like anyone Tom was used to seeing around. Tom frowned suspiciously and answered automatically, "I've been better." The man tilted his head slightly, glancing at the sign beside Tom. "Can you give me $1? Any help is welcome," he read aloud, as if testing the words. Then he looked back at Tom. "Just $1? That's all you need?" Tom felt his face flush. The shame he'd been suppressing all day now seemed ready to burst. He adjusted his crooked glasses and shrugged. "Yeah, enough to get something to eat. A slice of pizza would be nice." The man didn't say anything for a few seconds, just kept looking at Tom. Then, with a faint smile, he turned and walked into the pizzeria behind them. Tom watched, confused. Was that it? Was he coming back, or did he just go in because he felt uncomfortable? He'd seen this before, people who seemed curious but quickly gave up. It wouldn't be the first time. But the man did come back. He was holding a pizza box and a soda. Without hesitation, he sat down next to Tom and placed the food between them. "Here, go ahead and eat." Tom blinked, unsure of what to say. "Really?" The man shrugged. "It's just pizza. It won't bite. Go on." Tom picked up the box slowly, as if afraid it might disappear. When he opened it, the unmistakable smell of melted cheese and fresh tomato sauce hit him. He couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten something like this. "Thank you. Really thank you," he said, devouring the first slice almost without chewing. "No problem." The man leaned back against the wall, watching Tom eat. After a while, he asked casually, "So what's your story?" Tom stopped chewing, the weight of the question settling heavily on him. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, staring at the box on his lap. "My story?" He let out a short, humorless laugh. "You don't want to hear that?" The man raised an eyebrow as if to say, "Didn't I just ask?" "I don't judge, and I've got time," he said, crossing his arms. "Go ahead." Tom looked at him, trying to figure out what was behind the question. Was it genuine curiosity, pity, or did he just want something interesting to tell his friends later? "It's nothing special. I used to have a normal life, a job, a house, all that. And now, well, look at me." He gestured vaguely around as if the scene spoke for itself. The man nodded slowly. "But how did this happen? I mean, really?" Tom sighed, feeling the weight of the question. "It's complicated." "It almost always is," the man said with a small smile. "But you're here now. Something brought you to this point, and I'm curious to know what." Tom remained silent, his eyes fixed on the pizza as if it could somehow give him the answer. "Look," the man continued, his voice low and unhurried. "I know it's hard to talk about certain things, but sometimes it helps. I don't know, just to get it out. I'm here, and I'm listening." Tom took a deep breath, still hesitating. "Okay, maybe I'll tell you a little." The man smiled as if he already knew Tom would give in. "I'm listening." The man smiled as if he already knew Tom would give in. "I'm listening." Tom cleared his throat, still avoiding direct eye contact. "Well, it wasn't supposed to be like this, No one plans to end up here." The man nodded, encouraging him to continue. But before Tom could say more, he hesitated, swallowing the words as if he wasn't quite ready yet. The man leaned forward slightly, his eyes fixed on Tom. "No rush. Take your time, but I really do want to hear it." Tom took a deep breath, his fingers gripping the edge of the pizza box. Finally he murmured, "Okay, I'll tell you." Tom held the pizza box like a shield. He avoided looking directly at the man beside him, but the words began to spill out, hesitant at first, then more freely. I used to be an electrician," he began in a low voice. "Worked at it for almost 15 years. Had my house, my car, and my wife, Sarah." Tom paused, swallowing hard. Her name felt heavier than before. He looked out at the bustling square as if the memories were somewhere out there amidst the lights and movement. She was amazing, strong, One of those people who always believed things would work out, even when they didn't. We didn't have kids, but she was my family. The man beside him remained silent, listening intently. Tom took a deep breath before continuing. "Everything was fine until the day she was diagnosed with cancer. It was in her stomach. We found out too late." He ran a hand over his face, trying to organize his thoughts. "I sold everything I could to pay for the treatment, took on extra hours, even did jobs I knew weren't safe. Anything to give her a chance." The man nodded slowly, his expression serious. "Did she get better?" Tom shook his head, a sad smile crossing his face. "For a while, we thought she had. We thought the battle was won. But the cancer came back, and this time it was faster. I lost her in less than 6 months, and that's when everything started to fall apart." Tom continued, gripping the pizza box more tightly. "I couldn't go back to work properly. Every time I picked up a tool, I thought of her and everything I'd lost. I started making mistakes on the job, and soon enough I got fired." He paused, trying to catch his breath. It was as if each word drained a little more of his energy. "I lost my job, then my house. The car was the last thing I sold. And then, well, you know the rest. I ended up here." The man stayed quiet for a moment, processing everything he just heard. Finally he said, "That's a lot to carry on your own." Tom let out a short, humourless laugh. Who else was going to carry it? There's no one else. Friends disappeared when things got hard. Family, well, I was never close to anyone. In the end, it's just me. Have you ever asked for help? Like, really asked? The man asked, tilting his head. You're kidding, right? Look where I am. This is what asking for help got me. Tom gestured to the cup of coins and the sign on the ground. Nobody cares, you know that. The man stayed calm. Not everyone, Tom. I'm here, aren't I? Tom looked at him suspiciously. And why are you here? Huh? Why are you wasting your time with me? The man smiled faintly, leaning forward a little. Because I believe everyone deserves a second chance, and sometimes a little help can change everything. Tom studied the man's face for a moment. He looked familiar, but Tom couldn't quite place him. Then something clicked. Wait a minute, Tom said, blinking slowly. I know you. I've seen you before. You're... The man just smiled, as if he'd been expecting this reaction. You're Keanu Reeves, Tom exclaimed, his voice a mix of surprise and disbelief. He glanced around as if looking for someone to confirm his realization. Keanu shrugged, still smiling. Seems I've been recognized. But what are you doing here? I mean, you're you! Tom gestured nervously, as if words weren't enough to convey his astonishment. I'm just a person, Tom, Keanu said, his voice calm. And like anyone else, I believe we can make a difference in someone's life, even with a small gesture. Tom continued to stare at him, incredulous. This doesn't make sense. Why would you help someone like me? Keanu tilted his head, his eyes meeting Tom's with unwavering sincerity. Because I can, and because I believe you can do something amazing with this chance. Keanu stood up and extended his hand toward Tom. Let's start over right now. What do you think? Tom looked at the outstretched hand, unsure of what to make of it. Part of him wanted to accept, but the other part was still trapped in fear and doubt. I don't know if I can, he said, his voice heavy with hesitation. You can, Keanu replied firmly. You just need to believe. And if you can't believe in yourself yet, start by believing in me. Tom stared at him for a moment, feeling the weight of those words. Finally, he lifted his hand and shook Keanu's. All right, what do I have to lose? Keanu smiled, helping him to his feet. Nothing, but you've got a lot to gain. Before moving forward, Keanu took Tom to a small hotel nearby. First, let's get you cleaned up, he said with a calm smile. Tom, initially hesitant, accepted the gesture. At the hotel, he took a hot shower, the first one in weeks, and felt the water wash away not just the grime, but some of the weight he had been carrying. After the shower, Keanu led him to a nearby barber shop. The barber, under Keanu's guidance, tidied up Tom's disheveled hair. When the cut was finished, Tom looked in the mirror, surprised by the transformation. Dressed in clean, comfortable clothes that Keanu had provided, he finally saw a version of himself he hadn't seen in years. Keanu grinned as Tom stepped out. Now we're talking. You're looking like a new man. Tom adjusted the jacket and gave a shy but genuine smile. I feel different, better. Thank you. Keanu patted him on the shoulder. Ready to start over? Tom took a deep breath and nodded. Ready. They began walking through the square, Tom still trying to process everything that was happening. As they walked, Keanu spoke with a natural ease that made Tom feel comfortable. You know, Keanu said, glancing at the store windows around them, I've been through tough times too. Everyone has their battles, Tom. The difference is how we decide to fight them. Tom glanced at him sideways. You've had everything you wanted in life. How could you possibly understand what I've been through? Keanu gave a small smile but didn't respond immediately. Not everything we face makes the headlines, Tom, but that doesn't matter now. What matters is what you're going to do from here on out. They stopped in front of a hardware store door. Tom frowned, confused. Why are we here? He asked. Keanu opened the door and motioned for Tom to step inside. Because this is where it starts, for real. Tom stepped into the store. still dazed by the revelation of who Keanu Reeves was. He watched as one of the most recognizable faces in the world casually walked through the aisles like it was the most ordinary thing. The surreal nature of the moment wasn't lost on him. "So what are we doing here, Keanu?" Tom asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Keanu grabbed a shopping basket and handed it to Tom with a smile. "Pick out what you need to get back to work." "Back to work?" Tom blinked rapidly. "I don't even know if I can still do it. It's been years since I touched a tool." "Then we'll figure it out together," Keanu said with a calm tone. "Now grab what you need. Pliers, screwdrivers, anything that will help you restart." Tom hesitated but began walking down the aisles. He picked up a few basic tools, a pair of pliers, a screwdriver set, and a multimeter. Keanu walked beside him, occasionally adding extra items to the basket, like a sturdy backpack, a set of gloves, and even a lightweight jacket. "You're doing great," Keanu commented as he placed an organizer box in the basket. "You'll need this too." Tom stopped, holding a wrench in his hands. He looked at Keanu, still struggling to understand why this was happening. "Why are you doing this for me?" Keanu stopped as well and turned to face Tom, his expression serious. "Because I believe everyone deserves a second chance, Tom, and because I know what it's like to feel lost. The difference is, I had people beside me when I needed them. Now it's my turn to be that person for someone else." Tom lowered his eyes, feeling a lump in his throat. He didn't know how to respond. Keanu pulled out his phone and made a quick call. He exchanged a few words with someone on the other end, then hung up and looked at Tom. "Now we're heading to an electrical maintenance company. I've already spoken to the manager. He's willing to give you a chance if you can prove you know what you're doing." Tom's heart raced. "Are you serious?" "More than ever," Keanu replied. "Now it's up to you, Tom. If you really want to change your life, this is your opportunity." Tom took a deep breath, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. He looked at Keanu and nodded. "I'm in." "Good," Keanu said, giving Tom a light pat on the shoulder. "Let's go show them what you're made of." They arrived at the company, a functional building with workshops and equipment scattered around. Keanu stopped at the entrance and turned to Tom. "Remember, only you can prove what you're capable of. I just opened the door. The rest is up to you." Tom took a deep breath and nodded, feeling a newfound strength within him. "Thank you for everything." Keanu smiled as he opened the door. "Go on, you've got this." Tom followed Keanu into the Prime Solutions building, greeted by the hum of power tools and the voices of busy workers. The space was practical and orderly, with workbenches neatly arranged and electrical panels hanging on the walls. Tom glanced around, feeling small in an environment he had once mastered with ease. Keanu waved at a man approaching them. He was middle-aged, wearing a grey uniform and a curious expression. "Mike, this is Tom," Keanu said naturally. "He's an electrician, though he's been out of the field for a while. I think he just needs a chance to show what he can do." Mike looked at Tom, assessing him with the practiced eye of someone who had seen many workers come and go. He didn't seem entirely convinced, but trusted Keanu's judgment. "Well, if you say so, let's see what he's got." Tom's heart raced. He glanced at Keanu, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Go ahead, show them." Mike led Tom to a workspace with a faulty electrical panel. "Here's the deal," Mike said. "Fix this. Take your time, but do it right." Tom stared at the panel. It was straightforward enough, something he would have fixed in minutes years ago. But his hands trembled slightly as he picked up the tools. Memories of past mistakes and his struggles threatened to creep in, but he shook them off, focusing on the task. He carefully replaced a few wires, adjusted the circuits, and double-checked his work. As he finished, he stepped back and looked at Mike, who moved closer to inspect the panel. Mike toggled the panel on and off a few times, testing the results. Finally, he looked at Tom and nodded. "Good work," he said. "No errors. Looks like you still know what you're doing." For the first time in a long while, Tom smiled, a wave of relief washing over him. "Thank you. I'm a little rusty, but I think I can catch up quickly." Mike crossed his arms, still scrutinizing Tom. "Here's what we'll do. I'll start you as an assistant. It's a beginning, but if you keep proving yourself, we can think about something bigger." Outside the company, Keanu handed Tom a small card. It was simple, but the handwritten words caught Tom's attention. "Never give up on yourself. The world always needs someone with your courage." Tom held the card carefully, as if it were a talisman. He looked at Keanu, tears welling up in his eyes. "You've changed my life, man. I'll never forget this." Keanu smiled, slipping his hands into his pockets. "Just pay it forward someday. That's how the world gets better." Before Tom could respond, Keanu turned and walked away, blending into the crowd on the street. Tom stood there, clutching the card in his backpack, watching as Keanu disappeared around the corner. Tom glanced back at the company building once more, before turning and walking in the opposite direction. His backpack slung over his shoulders and the card tucked safely into his pocket. Tomorrow would be the first day of a new life, and he was ready for it. The sun had barely risen when Tom woke up at the shelter. He looked around, his hands touching the backpack beside his bed, as if to confirm that everything wasn't just a dream. The card with Keanu's message remained tucked in his jacket pocket, a constant reminder of his new chance. Tom put on the jacket, adjusted the backpack straps, and headed out for work. Walking through the streets, he felt a different energy within him, as if something inside had finally been rebuilt. When he arrived at Prime Solutions, Mike greeted him with a slight nod. "Ready to start?" "Absolutely," Tom replied with more confidence than he expected to feel. Mike walked him through the basics of his new role, organizing tools, assisting experienced technicians, and eventually taking on more complex tasks. It was a modest job, but for Tom, it was a fresh start. Throughout the day, Tom had moments of doubt. He made small mistakes, but each time he took a deep breath and remembered Keanu's words, "Only you can prove what you're capable of." One of his assignments involved dismantling a fuse box that was more complicated than he anticipated. His fingers hesitated for a moment, but years of experience returned, and he completed the task without issue. When he finished, one of his co-workers gave him a pat on the shoulder. "Good job, man. Doesn't seem like you've been out of this for long." Tom smiled. "Thanks. It feels good to be back." In the following days, Tom slowly adapted to the company's rhythm. He began arriving early, eager to learn and prove himself. Mike noticed his dedication, and his co-workers gradually accepted him as part of the team. One afternoon during a break, Tom sat with a group of technicians when one of them asked, "Hey, I heard Keanu Reeves was the one who brought you here. Is that true?" Tom chuckled, shaking his head. "Yeah, it's true." The technician's eyes widened. "How did that happen?" "It's a long story," Tom replied with a smile. "But to put it simply, he believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." That night, back at the shelter, Tom took the card from his pocket and placed it on the small table next to his bed. The words continued to resonate in his mind. "Never give up on yourself. The world always needs someone with your courage." Feeling inspired, Tom decided to pay the kindness forward. The next morning, before heading to work, he used part of his first week's earnings to buy 2 coffees and 2 sandwiches. He handed one to a man sitting on the sidewalk, holding a sign that read, "Hungry. Any help is welcome." The man looked at Tom, surprised. "Thanks, man. I didn't expect this." Tom smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "I know how it feels. Just pay it forward when you can, okay?" The man nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "I will, definitely." The next morning, Tom walked to work with his backpack and a renewed sense of purpose. He still had a long road ahead, but for the first time in years, he felt like he was in control of his life. The camera lingered on the card resting on the shelter's table, its handwritten message clear and inspiring. Never give up on yourself. The world always needs someone with your courage. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, Keanu Reeves was shown walking through the crowd, his calm face exuding serenity as he disappeared around a corner, leaving behind yet another transformed life. The narration closed the story with a reflective message. Sometimes a small gesture is all someone needs to change their life. What's stopping you from starting today? Up next, we've lined up 2 incredible stories for you to enjoy. If you like this one, you're going to love what's coming. Just click on the screen and dive into the next chapter.